Hi, I'm Caroline and welcome to my 2-week itinerary designed for a first-time visit to Jordan. In this video, I'll cover the route that we travelled, activities that we took part in, where we stayed, best financial way to gain a tourist visa, and finally, our budget. We'll dive straight in and talk about the route. We flew from London to Amman on the Monday and drove a short distance to Madaba for our first night's stay. On the Tuesday, we drove from Madaba to the Dead Sea. We prioritised this early during our trip as we wanted to visit Wadi Mujib before it closed for the winter season just 6 days later. We spent 2 nights at the Dead Sea. On Thursday morning, we drove south to Wadi Musa, which is the town on the edge of Petra. We spent 3 nights here with a day trip up to Wadi Ghuweir included, before driving another couple of hours further south on the Sunday to Wadi Rum. We spent 2 nights here and explored the desert before driving even further south on the Tuesday to a resort complex just outside of Aqaba for 2 nights of relaxation. On the Thursday, we made the long journey back north and stayed in Amman for 3 nights with a day trip to Jerash included. The daily activities. On our first full day, we wandered the streets of Madaba, getting our first taste of Jordan and visited St. George's Church to see its mosaic floor. After this, we headed to Wadi Mujib, where we hiked through and swam through the canyon, crossing waterfalls as we went. It may be worth noting here that Wadi Mujib closes from November 1st and reopens on April 1st, and it's because winter rains make it too dangerous between those months. On the Wednesday, we spent the day at our Dead Sea Resort hotel. After a decadent breakfast, we got mudded up and went for a float in the famous salty Dead Sea. We tried a couple of the hotel's pools and spent time relaxing at the spa before chowing down on the hotel's dinner buffet. On the Thursday, we drove to Wadi Musa and spent the afternoon exploring a small slice of Petra, mostly the sick and the treasury, which in the middle of the day were overwhelming to say the least. Once the sun went down, we experienced the site lit up through Petra by night. On the Friday, we drove a little north to hike through Wadi Ghuweir, a spectacular canyon which begins bone dry, but as we descended through some slightly challenging areas, the levels of water began to increase. Eventually, we found ourselves hiking through a full-blown desert oasis. By Saturday, we found ourselves back inside of Petra for a full day's exploration. We entered in peace and quiet just after opening at 6 a.m. We saw the treasury with only a handful of others around, the theatre cut into the rock, the colonnaded street, walked the 800-odd steps up to the monastery, kept walking for the World's End viewpoint, before coming back on ourselves. A quick lunch break at the basin was followed by a viewpoint into the Great Temple, a peek inside of the church to see its mosaic floors, and an exploration of the royal tombs both inside and out. Saturday was a rather full-on day as we spent the evening at a cooking class at Petra Kitchen. Given the amount of calories that we'd burnt hiking through Petra, we made a significant dent on the copious amount of food that we made. A 2-hour drive took us to Wadi Rum on Sunday. We arrived at the visitors centre for 10 a.m, allowing for a full day exploring the desert. We checked out arches, canyons, sand dunes, were treated to a delicious freshly cooked hot lunch eaten casually on a picnic rug, and watched on as the sun set at the end of the day. Monday was again spent in the desert. We hiked the Jabal al-Hash in the morning, which provided views out onto Jabal Adermi and Saudi Arabia off in the distance. Lunch was just as amazing as the day before. Once again, it was a chilled affair on a picnic rug with expansive views out over the desert. On this day, we learnt how to build our own fire using items found in the desert and brewed our own Bedouin tea. In the afternoon, we hiked through the Abu Kashiba Canyon, which ended with a cheeky sandboarding session, and we sat on top of a sand dune to watch the sunset. Dinners on both evenings in the desert were buffet style, featuring zarb, a traditional Bedouin dish cooked in a large underground pit, a must-try if visiting Wadi Rum. We had a lazy start to the day on Tuesday and slowly made our way to Tala Bay, a resort complex just south of Aqaba, for a few days of relaxation. On the Wednesday, we hit pause on the relaxation for a couple of hours as we booked onto a boat trip to go snorkelling to see some of the sunken objects such as a military tank and a plane. Thursday morning was very leisurely, where we enjoyed a sumptuous hotel's breakfast buffet and chilled a little bit more by the pools, before making the long drive back north. On the Friday, we were collected from our hotel by a private driver who took us 1 hour north to Jerash, an ancient Greco-Roman city argued to be the biggest and most well-preserved outside of Italy. I thoroughly enjoyed exploring the site from its hippodrome to impressive arches, theatres, plazas, temples and more. Saturday was our final day and we were determined to squeeze as much as possible out of it. An early start put us into the Citadel shortly after opening, where we were able to see the remnants of what Amman was like back when it was known as Philadelphia. A steep but easy walk down the hill led us to the Roman Theatre, though the walk back up those steps was anything but easy. Next door to this was the Odeon, and a short walk down the street was the Nymphaeum. Lunch was eaten at the well-known Hashem restaurant, where we had no idea what was coming as there's just no menu. But it was delicious and so cheap. We explored the modern parts of Amman in the afternoon, checking out the gold souk, the fruit and veg souk, which also sold meats, fish, nuts, sweets, you name it. We headed up to Rainbow Street for a quick falafel panini and then headed back down the hill to Habiba Sweets, where we got to try the kunafe and met some amazing locals. The accommodations. Our night in Madaba was spent at the Mount Nebo Hotel, a beautifully decorated family-run hotel with a gorgeous breakfast buffet. We stayed at the Movenpick resort at the Dead Sea after finding a really good deal online. The spa was lacking in a steam room or sauna often found in European spas, and the rooms were a little bit dated, but the staff were attentive. We had a wide selection of pools. Their beach was clean and well maintained, and their breakfast and dinner buffets were lavish and delicious. We stayed at the Petra Moon Hotel in Wadi Musa. The room was large and comfortable, but the thing that we really loved about this place was how close it was to the entrance of Petra. I'd highly recommend booking a hotel in this pocket of the town. In Wadi Rum, we stayed at the Quiet Village Camp. It's a traditional Bedouin camp, but the tents were clean and cosy. The bathroom block was well maintained, and the meals were fantastic value. When weighing up the cost of this place, it was one of my favourite accommodations on the trip. At the Red Sea, we stayed at the Movenpick Tala Bay, which is further south than its sister hotel in Aqaba. The breakfasts were fancy, complete with pizza-making stations, and the choice of pools felt endless. It's also got a really good sized beach too. In Amman, we stayed at the Nomads Hotel. It's just off of Rainbow Street, which has a happening vibe to it. The front desk staff were incredibly helpful there, especially as we were quite needy customers wanting assistance with transport to Jerash and to the airport at the end. Breakfast was included on the hotel's rooftop with stunning views across Amman. Links to all of these accommodations are in the video description below. Tourist visas, including the Jordan Pass. If you're planning a visit as a tourist and you also plan to visit Petra, purchase the Jordan Pass. A tourist visa on its own is 40 Jordanian dinar, and a one-day pass to Petra, 50 Jordanian dinar. As the Jordan Pass costs 70 Jordanian dinars, from these two costs alone, you've already saved 20. I must add a huge word of warning to this though. You can pay 75 JDs and that gives you 2 consecutive days at Petra, or 80 JDs for 3 consecutive days at Petra. I know people who bought the one-day pass and thought that they could pay just an extra 5 JDs at Petra to upgrade if they wanted an extra day. This is not the case, and if you wanted to go back for a second day at Petra, you would have to pay another 40 JDs for it rather than just the extra 5. The same can be said for a Petra by night ticket. You must pay 17 JDs for this special ticket, but it's only valid if you've got the daytime ticket for that specific day. So say for example you were planning to drive to Petra on an afternoon, arriving in the evening with a plan to go see Petra by night that night, and then go and visit Petra in daylight hours the following day, you would need a 2-day pass. The Jordan Pass also gets you into numerous other places at no additional cost, such as the Wadi Rum Desert, Jerash, Amman's Citadel, the Nymphaeum, the Roman Theatre, among many others too. The budget. For the 2-week trip, it came out at £1,727.35. To break this down, the flights were £376.97, which was something of a bargain. Pre-COVID, I'd never seen direct flights from London to Amman with carriers like Royal Jordanian or British Airways dip below £550, so we jumped on this opportunity whilst we had it. When we travelled back in October 2021, we had to pay £80 for a PCR test, which was an entry requirement for Jordan, and then had to pay another £25 for a lateral flow test to allow us to return to the UK after our trip. By the time that this video is published, Jordan no longer requires a PCR test for anyone, vaccinated or not, though our FCOs state that non-Jordanian travellers should complete the Travel to Jordan Declaration form. The UK government has also scrapped the need to take a lateral flow after returning from abroad, so this can save a traveller around about £100. We took out travel insurance at a cost of £44.43. We always do this for the peace of mind around medical treatment should we be unlucky enough to need it, and of course in this particular instance if either of us tested positive for COVID and it caused the trip to fall apart. Visitors to Jordan need to purchase a visa, as already discussed. We purchased the Jordan Pass, which included the visa, and this cost us £85.55. We hired the cheapest category of car rental available, and my goodness, it showed when we were taken to the car in the airport. The vehicle was scratched to death, but it ran perfectly fine, and the rental cost and additional insurance was £134.85 for 9 days. We used public transport to get from our home in South London to Heathrow Airport. And when we were in Amman, we didn't have a car, so used a private driver to take us to Jerash and back, and also the airport taxis to and from the airport and downtown Amman. All of this came to £69.34. The accommodation costs was a little bit of a funny one. It came to £602.68 each. However, unlike the previous trips where we've self-catered, most of the accommodation costs covered breakfast, some also included lunch and dinners, and some, like the Dead Sea, the Red Sea, and the Wadi Rum camp, came with a plethora of activities or facilities, which meant that we didn't have to spend any further money on things like entrance fees, guides, and so on. Outside of the meals included in our accommodation costs, we spent a further £129.73 on food. Petra and the Red Sea were on par with restaurant prices in the UK, whilst we found that Amman was just wonderfully cheap. The activities is another funny one, as whilst the cost is showing at £113.47, it doesn't take into consideration that some of the activities costs were covered through the accommodation. For example, the use of the spa and the beach access at the Dead Sea, or the guided tours in Wadi Rum. It's also worth noting that a cooking class is included in this cost, which would have impacted on our aforementioned food costs. The final costing is for miscellaneous items such as a Jordanian SIM card, the kafia, the Arabic sweets that are bought for colleagues at school, and fuel. I would highly recommend a trip to Jordan to anyone and everyone. If you've got any questions, please ask away in the comments, but if you have found this video to be helpful, I'd be most grateful if you could hit that like button so that it can spread to more people. And if you found it really helpful, you might be interested in my Jordan travel vlog series, so click on the playlist to find out more.